When it comes to basic joinery, I think dowels is a really good one. So in this video, let's go over various ways to make dowel joints. The simplest way by far is to use a jig. All joinery is really about precision, right? And that's why using a jig can really make your life easier, especially if you have a lot of repetitive holes to drill and dowels to assemble. So first step is looking at your wood and seeing what size dowel would be reasonable. For this joint right here, I think a 1/4 inch is great. Now this jig comes in 3 different sizes. There's a 1/4 inch, 3/8, and 1/2 inch. I just picked the 1/4 inch jig with the accompanying drill bit. And next up here, we're going to set how far in we want to actually drill. Now, when you're trying to decide, okay, how deep do I need to drill into this hole to set this dowel? So, you know, about the halfway between the thickness of the wood. But you want to drill just a little bit extra, because once the dowel gets in that hole and you have glue, the whole joint can like break out if there's not enough space. So you want, you know, give it a little bit of extra room for that movement, for that glue. Now, the nice thing about a jig like this is if you line it up like right on the edge, and you do that with both your pieces, it will automatically match up. The tricky part becomes if you want to go more in the center, then you might need like a stop block or something that you can use repetitively. Creating a clamp. The holes are not exactly in the middle. That's absolutely fine. We just have to make sure we line it up in the same way on the other piece of wood. So we have our holes here, and they will match up perfectly. Okay, we have our 2 dowels, we have our 2 pieces of wood. Let's connect it all. Okay, so we have a nice tight joint. What jigs do so beautifully is to line things up so we don't have to, right? Now if we don't have a jig, then we're the ones who have to do the measuring instead. I'm going to use a brad point bit, same size as my dowel. Go down about halfway on the wood. Try to drill straight if possible. When you're using with this kind of wood, the possibility is always busting out on the side as you're sitting quite close to the edge. Of course, you could have connected this piece of wood further in. And especially when you're drilling your holes without a guide, it's a good idea to use a square just to make sure that you drill straight and that the joint is going in straight. This is looking good. So measuring both pieces of wood, fine. Kind of annoying though, and kind of labor intensive and hard to line it all up, and kind of difficult as well if it's not a very simple joint like this. What if you are in more of a weird area and you need to reach? Then the beauty of the doweling joint, that I think, is that once you made holes on your one piece of wood, they should be able to determine where the other holes should go on the other piece of wood. Instead of drilling holes in here and fitting dowels in, we're going to nail in some nails, some small little finishing nails. These right here are nice and thin, that's what I'm really looking for. Let's remove the tops. Okay. So now we have 2 sharp little points right there. We basically have a little marker. And let's say we wanted to put this piece of wood right in the middle here. So we have our holes in our piece here, and we have our holes here. Of course, we do have to remove these first before we do anything else. Let's do that. Get these out. Okay, that was not hard. Okay, now we can drill holes. So in this instance, we only had to measure out our dowel positioning on the one piece of wood, right? And then we were using that to make marks on the second piece of wood, which is really kind of cool. I do like that technique. Plus you can just put it wherever you need. Now, the only thing that's kind of annoying about that, I think, is you have to remove those little metal plugs after the fact, right? So what if you're doing that to a lot of pieces of wood? Then you have to nail them in, make marks, take them out. Yeah. Wouldn't it be nice if we could just kind of create a jig ourselves? Something like a dowel that has a point to it that we can put in the dowel hole that we make and mark the other piece of wood. So let's make one for a 1/4 inch dowel. At first I was thinking all I need to do is to cut a piece of a 1/4 inch dowel and insert the nail point in the center of it, and then I can insert that into the hole. If I do that, it's going to stick up quite a bit. And what if the hole is not that long? You're going to have to bring it out of there and kind of pliers. I need a thicker piece around it so it can rest in the dowel hole and not go in very far, so you can actually pick it up yourself. So I have a thicker dowel here. Okay, got a little glue. It's gonna crack though, isn't it? A little crack. I was just thinking though, I don't want to like squeeze this in there, so I'm just gonna carve the point of this just a little bit, just so it's not like a tight fit, if you know what I mean. Okay, let's see if this is gonna work at all. I mean, if this concept is even a good idea, if it needs to be adjusted. Okay, and I made 2 of these little pluggy things, so I'll insert them. So here we have 2 marks. The tricky part about making these little guys is that the wood is so small and so it cracks really easily. Like, you definitely need this little bigger piece on top that it can rest on so that it doesn't just disappear into the dowel hole, right? But, it's definitely nice when you get those points though, right, that you can grip onto with that, with a bit. At the basis of it, I like the idea of little pins that mark the other side of the wood, right? I wouldn't be surprised if you could buy this exact thing in the store. Yeah, how about one of these? So what do we have here? Just a cleaner, more precise version of this little guy, right? So, I mean, it has the exact thing that I was thinking about. A hole, a flange, and an edge. This is obviously superior. More exact, repeatable. Won't crack. I was thinking those initial holes still need to be drilled straight, right? So, kind of need to make a jig for that. So, let's head to the drill press. The drill press is great, of course, because it enforces that you drill perfectly straight. And I started with 2 holes, but I figured I might as well do 3 holes using a piece of scrap wood here. To create something to clamp against, let's just attach a piece of scrap plywood here on the side, and now we basically have the same jig more or less that I used initially. So here it is. Nothing fancy, right? Very basic. Shall we try it out? You can always attach a piece here too if you want to make this like a corner piece, so you always have that perfectly. Bring these in. Now these are nice, of course, because they're so close to the piece. So this guide jig, pretty much the same jig as the dowel jig I used before, works great. Of course, I just, there's wood here. You could add like metal inserts if you wanted to make sure that over time you don't, drill into the wood in different ways. But this is great. You can make these in different configurations if you like. These little plugs that I made, fine, but obviously these little metal dowel plugs work a lot better, more precise, and you know, turns out not not very expensive, and very, you know, good idea to pick some of these up. Probably work better than these over time. And here actually I have a drill bit with a little lock here that came with these plugs, so that you can set the depth of how far you want to go in. So you don't have to use tape, and you can just drill holes one after the other. So, kind of cool. Lots of different ways to make dowel joinery, right? Make your little plugs, use little metal plugs, use a jig you buy, make a jig. Which I kind of think is cool. Not very complicated, right? Works great. Let me know if you have any questions, thoughts in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching. My name is Linn. This is the Darbin Orvar channel, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye. I mean, obviously you could use like plexiglass on top here instead of wood, but I mean, that's just kind of like, it's not necessary, right? I mean, it does the same job, just a piece of wood. Must say I rather like this. And I like that you can create the in-depth perfectly to whatever project you are using, how many holes you need, what size dowel. It's a little more flexible than using a jig you buy, right? So